In the First Age. In March 20th, 2020, Doom Eternal released on all consoles. But when the shadows lengthened, one remained unreleased. And those that tasted the bite of 30 frames per second named this version Doom Eternal for the Nintendo Switch.
Hello, my fellow designers. Welcome back to D-Life HD. This is Victor, and today we are finally reviewing the long-awaited mega powerhouse Switch port, Doom Eternal. And it's been delayed enough, coming out in December when the original version came out in March. So without any further delay, let's jump right into it.
Switch it up. Switch it up. I was a worker, had to upgrade to a boss. Switch it up. Used to live in the hood, but had to upgrade to a loft. Switch it up.
Starting off, let's discuss the game modes. Similarly to Doom 2016, Doom Eternal consists of two main game modes. Those being Campaign, which sees you going out and slaying hordes of demons, and a quest to destroy the 3 priests of the underworld, and also an online function that allows one person to play as the Doom Slayer and face off against 2 other players who play as demons. The game modes are relatively straightforward, as I previously stated, and honestly there's not a whole lot beyond this. You can also access different customizable functions in the game that allow you to change your skins and update your online profile for when you want to go on and play the online function. Moving right along, let's discuss the UI and graphics. Now, the UI and graphics are going to be one of the sections of this game that takes the hardest hit, being ported to a low powerful console like the Nintendo Switch. If you've seen gameplay of this game on other consoles, then you know it is one of the most gorgeous and powerhouse pushing the boundaries of what video games can be. I've gotten the chance to see it running on high-end PCs and doing an endless amount of frames, and the graphics are absolutely stunning. But unfortunately, it takes a hit here, seeing as it is on the Nintendo Switch, and we are reviewing this game specifically with the Nintendo Switch version in mind. So if you've come to play this game on the Nintendo Switch and haven't had the opportunity to play it on other consoles, and you're really looking forward to seeing a graphically heavy version of the game, the Nintendo Switch version is probably not where you're going to want to play this. But moving forward, I'm going to discuss this from the perspective of the Nintendo Switch solely. The graphics, even though they are taking a hit and have lower resolution and a lot of blurring when things are further away, are still magnificent. There are low-res textures here and there, and a lot of sprinkled in areas where things are very blurry, but overall, what Panic Button, the port house of this game, have managed to pull off is absolutely awe-inspiring. Like I said earlier, this game is one that pushes the boundaries of what games can be, and so having it being ported to the Nintendo Switch sounded like a big feat for the porters. But somehow they managed to pull it off with all the action that's on screen and make the graphics feel very fluid, and even though they take a resolution hit, they still are awesome. I absolutely love the graphical style of Doom 2016, and Doom Eternal takes it to the next level. Although the game is very serious in tone with its story, and we'll get to that later in the story section, it actually takes a more cartoony look when it comes to the graphical style. Some things are a little bit more realistic, but I've noticed that a lot of the demons take on a different style than they had in the previous games. Such as the larger fat demons, they have more cartoony looking faces, and the classic meatball demons, which are called Cacodemons, those actually also take on a very spherical and cartoony style as well. If you're like me, the hit when it comes to the graphics and blurring is not really a big deal, especially considering the fact that you can play this game on the go in a handheld style. The main campaign doesn't require you to connect to the internet, and so being able to play it on the go is absolutely a steal when it comes to this version of the game, and probably the most attractive aspect. I had the opportunity to play the game in multiple different formats, that being very up and close and personal with my monitor, and on a larger scale TV, also on a smaller TV further away from me, and finally in the handheld function. And I have to say, even though playing in handheld is a little bit uncomfortable with the Joy-Cons and their shorter sticks, which can sometimes get in the way when it comes to aiming, playing it in handheld was actually a very awesome experience. Because it's on a smaller screen, the lower resolution textures and the blurring don't really have as much weight in this sense. If you're looking to buy this game simply to play it in handheld, and maybe you've played it on other consoles, I am proud to state that the handheld function is absolutely an appeal of this version of the game, and you most likely will not be disappointed with it. The UI is very straightforward. You don't have a whole lot of options until you jump into the campaign itself. The campaign has a hub base where you launch into levels. Within this hub, you have many optional opportunities to access your main character, the Doomslayer's Praetor suit, and upgrade it with different functions. The UI in these sections is extremely detailed and very fun for people that are really interested in digging into the finer details of how to upgrade your character. Also, while playing the game, you come across different scripts and access points where you can read about the lore of the game. This is how much of the narrative is actually pushed along outside of cutscenes, and it's very interesting, but completely optional. Alright, now let's move into the controls and gameplay. A lot of times when doing these reviews, I'll actually record certain portions of it at different times depending on what part I'm focusing on with the review, and I'm recording this a lot later than I was recording the previous portion on graphics, and I wanted to slip this in because the controls and gameplay are very tight, but I think that they've really dug their way into my brain considering how much I've actually played this game. So much so that I actually, this previous night, had a full-on nightmare about the game itself. It's set more so on Earth and in buildings, things that we'd actually come in contact with, less so than the previous game, Doom 2016, which was more set down in the underworld itself and also in a futuristic base on Mars. So maybe it's the more realistic aspects, but let's just say that the controls and gameplay are so tight and they might find their way into your subconscious thoughts and dreams. Alright, actually jumping into the gameplay itself, let's get to talking about it. Doom 2016 is unlike other first-person shooters in the sense that it was less focused on being tactical and more focused on just being fully action-packed and moving constantly. And with Doom Eternal, that aspect of the previous game is turned up to 11. You have lots of new portions that are added to the controls that just step up the tight gameplay of the previous game and make it all the more better. Some new aspects include a shoulder cannon that allows you to use multiple different elemental attacks, including the grenade and also an ice freeze attack. You also have another type of cannon that shoots fire. It's called the Flame Belch, and it allows you to replenish your armor. So with glory kills, which are the more up close and personal, something that was very, very popular with the original Doom 2016 game, you replenish health. So once you've staggered an enemy and got them down to a low portion of health, they blink off and on and you can go up and do a melee attack and that will replenish your health. You also have the chainsaw, which returns from the previous game, and using the chainsaw on an enemy, which does require fuel that can run out, allows you to replenish all of your ammo. And the only other aspect of collectible in this game is the armor. So the Flame Belch is a new aspect that allows you to replenish your armor. Once you shoot an enemy with this Flame Belch, it doesn't necessarily damage them, but you do get armor in return. And then once you've killed the enemy itself, more armor is granted to you. I like these new aspects because they really add to the depth of the content and allow you to change up your way that you play the game. You also have a couple new functions right off the bat. One is the double jump feature, which was not given to you in Doom 2016 until pretty far along. However, in Doom Eternal, it is given to you right off the bat. Another new feature is the dash. This allows you to move forward very quickly multiple times, not just on land to get away from different enemies if you're low on health, but also in the air. This adds to something that was less so featured in the previous games, and that is 3D platforming. There is so much 3D platforming in this game. In fact, one might even argue that it's to the detriment of the game. There are many portions of the platforming that I found confusing. It's just odd because I found myself getting stumped up and lost multiple times. Like, Doom 2016 and all the previous games, except for Doom 3, were all focused on combat and constantly moving around throughout the map. But in Doom Eternal, there's a lot more puzzle aspects, and it's not exactly something that I come to these games to enjoy. I do like puzzles, but I would rather play games like Zelda to experience them. I think that it's interesting that they're trying to spice up the gameplay, but I would have preferred if all this platforming was put to a minimum, and if the puzzles themselves weren't as constant as they are. Just like its predecessor, Doom Eternal features a plethora of different types of guns. It really adds to the constant flowing style of the game, switching in between all these different weapons. And the speed is amazing. You have a dial wheel that allows you to select from your different weapons, just like in the previous game. And also, just by playing the game, you earn upgrade points that allow you to max out your weapons to have different special moves. One in particular that I totally recommend, and just as an example here, is with the cannon. The cannon has a lock-on function that once you target an enemy, the missiles will automatically fly to it even if you're not pointed directly at it. It also shoots not just one missile at a time, but 3. This is just one example of the many upgrades that you can select for all the different types of weapons in this game. The main gameplay is centered around going through a linear style of level and facing off against hordes of different demonic creatures. The diversity in this game is exceptional. You have the smaller imps, you have smaller zombie type enemies, and then you've got all types of aerial enemies, not just the cacodemons, but new ones that have wings, and there's just so many different types of enemies you can face, and each one requires a different strategy. As you play along, you'll start to adapt to the way all these different enemies come at you, and then you can plan accordingly. There's a lot of strategy that goes into the super fast tight gameplay. Which weapon are you going to use against the bigger demons? Are you going to conserve your ammo here, or do you want to go ahead and use it because the enemy that's on you is slowly picking away at your health? The depth of the gameplay seems shallow at first, but as you dig into it and you unlock all these different weapons and different features and upgrades, it just explodes with content, and I absolutely love it. It's engaging for the people that want to dig deep into all the different upgrades you can do, but if you're just there to run around and play it on easy mode, that's completely an option. It's amazing. Next, let's move on to the music and sound.
This is humanity's chance to repent, to give service to us. You cannot resist the will of the Khan Maker.
Starting off with the sound itself, as I stated previously during the UI and graphics section, there's a lot more cartoony aspects to the game, and the sound effects don't take away from that by a long shot. There are so many weird and cartoony sound effects that I didn't expect to be in such a nitty-gritty, serious type game, and it's honestly funny and had me laughing out loud many times. When you shoot the smaller imps or the possessed little zombie enemies' heads off, like get a headshot, it physically makes a popping sound. Same with when you do a glory kill on the cacodemons and pull one of their eyes out, it actually makes a sound, and it is hilarious. I was not expecting it by a long shot, but they have a lot of different sound effects that are absolutely hilarious. And also, there's a lot of amazing sound design in the game as well. You go through these sections that are more like organic, and they remind me of Metroid, and you hear little like squishing sound effects when you're walking through there, and when you're walking on the metal sections of an indoor building, of course it's metal. And also, all the different enemies have their own unique sound patterns. Like this new enemy that's this giant spider brain makes these high-pitched screeching noises, and you don't even have to see it. When you hear it on the map, you know, and there's chills going down your spine, that this enemy is near. It engages me, and I love it so much. And the music does the same exact thing to 11. Doom is very famous for its upbeat, rocky, metal-style guitar music, and it's shredding, and it makes you get prepared to go out and just face these hordes of enemies. Doom Eternal does take on that older style and uses a lot of themes from the previous games, but it also puts a new spin on these themes by incorporating different types of synthesizers and electronic style of music. One particular synthesizer that I know they used because I heard it in multiple different instances is called a theremin, and it doesn't use hands to play. I've actually had the opportunity to play one before, but it was used in a lot of older Alien movies to give this sort of mystical sound, and the incorporation into what's supposed to be a more rocky and upbeat soundtrack honestly blends really well and adds to the mood of the overall game. Alright, now let's discuss the story. Doom 2016 left off on a cliffhanger. Earth was running out of energy, and so they discovered on Mars that they could tap into a new energy source that had been undiscovered. Little did they know that came from a demonic realm created by ancient beings long ago. With that said, they continued to tap into this energy, and all of a sudden, it broke loose, and all of these demons started filling the base. And after Doom 2016, they actually went on to attack the entire universe. So with that said, the Doomslayer, an ancient being who was said to be betrayed by the demons, is seeking vengeance, and he's out to destroy all the demons. He's been missing for many years since the previous game, but he's out for revenge. Since then, the demons have taken over Earth and destroyed a large portion of the human race. The attack on Earth is led by an ancient race of horrible cult leaders. And so, the first portion of Doom Eternal, without spoiling anything that comes after, is about the Doomslayer making his return and going out to slay 3 of the priests that lead this evil cult race. Alright, let's discuss the final rating and the pros and cons. Starting off with the cons, just to get them out of the way so we can end on a good note. There is a large graphical hit with this game, and you are locked in at a maximum of 30 frames per second. So if that bugs you, this is probably not going to be the game for you. If you're looking to put it on your enormous TV and play it that way, you're probably going to be disappointed. Another odd dysfunction is that the cutscenes run at a lower frame rate than the rest of the game. I think they're running somewhere around 20 frames, but my guess would be they wanted to give a resolution boost or maybe a graphical boost to the rest so the cutscenes would be more engaging, but it really subtracts from that immersion when going fluid between the gameplay and the cutscenes, and I'm not a big fan of that addition. Finally, the largest drawback in this game is something that I'm not hearing being reported around the internet. I've looked everywhere and just can't find anybody talking about it, so my guess is it's exclusive to the Nintendo Switch version, and I hope they patch it out soon. I've dealt with this 2 times now throughout my entire gameplay, and it's very, very disheartening, and it ruins the game in many ways for me. That is an issue with the gameplay itself. Let me dig into this very briefly. When you first get the cannon and the cult base assault mission, if you die right after that, you're loaded back at a checkpoint. This is how the game works. It works by checkpoints. You get to certain points, and if you die, you go back to them. Now, you get a checkpoint when you get this cannon, But if you die at the next portion of large enemy attack, you actually get warped back to a small room under a hole where you were to find that cannon. Normally you'd find the cannon and then the door would open up and you'd go fight the enemies. But if you die at this portion, it warps you back and the door just won't open and you're stuck in the hole. This happened to me and I had to start the entire mission over. It put me at dis-ease because I wasn't necessarily going to be able to just die and respawn at my checkpoint, because if this happened again later, I'd have to start the whole level over. And it did happen in another level. I actually died multiple times at this part, so I had to start the level over multiple times because it kept loading me into a place where I couldn't finish the level. I couldn't complete what it wanted me to do because I was stuck. I tried everything, exhausting all my different possibilities of being able to escape, but after a long time of trying to do so, I just figured I had to start the level over. If you come across this issue and you manage to solve it, please let me know in the comments, because I'm curious if I'm the only one who's experiencing this issue, and I hope if it is a widespread issue that they'll patch it out. Alright, now let's get to the pros. This game is so fantastic to be able to play in handheld. I've done a fair amount of all the different ways you can play it, handheld, docked, large TV, small TV, and I have to say, playing in handheld is absolutely amazing. People struggle with playing first-person shooters on the Nintendo Switch in handheld because the sticks are so short and it's hard to make small adjustments when aiming, but Doom Eternal is not really a precision shooter. It's really about running around and doing a lot of melee-focused attacks, and so it really works in handheld. This was true for the previous game, and being able to experience the next addition in this franchise that I love in a handheld setting is positively mind-blowing. This game is much bigger than the previous game, and the Porthouse Panic Button Studios did an amazing job porting this game over to the Switch. And so maybe you've played Doom Eternal on another console and you want to be able to play it handheld, this game is absolutely not going to disappoint in that regard. Or maybe you've held off on playing in other consoles, or you only own a Nintendo Switch and you're looking to get this for somebody for Christmas or yourself for Christmas. Well worth the money. It is absolutely fantastic as a handheld game, and if you're like me and you're willing to put up with some blurring and lower resolution textures, it works in the TV fantastic as well. I can highly recommend this game outside of its few hiccups and issues with the checkpoints and loading.
Alright guys, thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments down below what you thought of this video. We love talking to you guys. Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like these. Lastly, check out our Twitter account for gameplay on the latest releases. But most importantly, remember to stay 1UP.